Hey everybody, this is Jim the Tabletop Engineer, and welcome to a new Let's Paint a Mini video. Tonight I'm going to be painting Sergeant Ian, what was his last name? Sergeant Ian Wells of Jonesboro, Maine. This is a miniature from the Cthulhu Death May Die game that I've been playing recently. I've got a lot of miniatures. These are the investigators that go up against the mythos, the big evils that are attacking the world. This is a war veteran. He's lost his arm. And I want to paint him tonight while I chat with you about the new Army Painter paints. So as you'll see right now, I've got the basic set. It's called the Mega Set of, there were 24 bottles. One of them is not a paint. It is a medium. Let me see if I can find it. Where was it? Anyway, it's in here somewhere. Here it is. It's a speed paint medium bottle, which I guess you can mix this with other paints to get that speed paint, effect. I've actually not tried it. Probably should, but I haven't done that yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint up Ian, and I want to tell you why I'm so enjoying these paints and what I think about the news of Army Painter releasing 50 new paints. Now, I think 5 of them are repeat paints that are in here. But let me go ahead and get started. First thing I want to do is get his hand and face painted with the flesh wash. Now, the speed paints, if you're not familiar with them, I'm not a professional painter, so I'm probably not going to use terminology correct and things like that. But the speed paints really do help a non-professional or a non-expert painter get some pretty decent effects. I used to paint with acrylics. I still do, but I paint with basic acrylics. And then I would do washes like this. Washes will get down in the folds and the creases and stuff, and they'll bring out the detail. Well, you don't really have to do that with these speed paints. They, excuse me, when they dry, they tend to change colors based on the surface that they're on and where they pool. Where they pool, it tends to be a little darker, and where they are, where it's very thin layers, it usually comes off as a brighter color. So it's kind of, I mean, it's not magic. I mean, there's a chemistry to it. But what I find interesting about it is that, well, it started with Citadel. Citadel released these things called contrast paints, and they were very popular, and they still are. The contrast paints, they have a slightly different formula, as I understand it, but they still allow a non, professional painter to get some pretty good results with the paints. You just you have to be careful when you're painting that you only get the speed paints or the contrast paints where you want them, right? You don't want to get them on anything else, because then you have to touch it up with white. Because in my understanding and my experience, the speed paints really don't blend well together, especially when they're not the same color, the same shade. Like the greens will blend well together, but if you did a green and a red or a green and a blue, they're going to mix and they're going to get really dark, like a black or a gray. So you have to be a little extra careful when you're painting with the speed paints to just put the paint where you want it. Now, as I said, this is the Mega Set. It came with 23 colors. The basic set, I think, came with 8. Could be wrong on that. I didn't get the basic set. But now they have announced a new Mega Set 2.0. And the Mega Set 2.0 is going to come with 50 paints. Now, 49, I guess, because they're giving you another bottle of the speed paint medium. So let's say 49 paints. And then as I understand it, I think 5 of those are paints that are in the Mega Set. I can't remember which ones they are. I'm pretty confident I remember seeing the plasmatic bolt, which is one of my least favorite colors in it. So I'm hoping that the reason they're re-releasing it is maybe they've changed the formula, because I've not had any success with this plasmatic bolt looking good. And I cannot remember what the other colors are that they're going to be doing. But again, that if 5 of them are repeats, that means there's going to be 44 new colors, which is really just outstanding. Now, I believe there is a graphic out there that's kind of hard to read that shows you some of the colors, but I couldn't tell the text on it. So one of my complaints has been the lack of flesh colors. There's only one flesh color in the mega set, and it's this one. It's called Crusader Skin, and it's a very tan Caucasian color. And so if you're wanting to get anything other than that, you're kind of out of luck. It just doesn't really, there aren't any others. So if you're wanting to paint multiple skin tones, you'll have to go outside of the speed paints and either go to some of Citadel's or to just a standard acrylic paint that offers the colors you're looking for. But so my experience so far, I've painted, I don't know, I've probably painted about 20, no, probably more than that, maybe 30 or 40 miniatures using my mega set here. And I have to tell you, as someone who does not look for high perfection, right? I mean, when I paint my models, I'm obviously trying to take my time and I want them to look good, but I'm really just wanting to get them on the table so I can play with them. And for that reason, I don't really go crazy with trying to be super, super careful. Now, sometimes I want the detail to pop out, and for that I will be a little extra careful. But really what I want to do is just throw the paint on the mini, and then let it dry and get to playing. And that's what speed paints have really allowed me to do. Now there's some detail on here, like the sergeant stripes on his arm, and there's medals on his chest. They're very tiny, so they're going to be a little difficult to do. So what I'm going to do is I am going to paint over them with this green, which is camo cloak. And then I'll use normal acrylic, which are brighter, and I'll go over the medals and the stripes. They're not true speed paints, but what the speed paints allow me to do is just get the paint on there very, very fast. And then when it dries, I can get to the small details and then get to playing with the miniature. So right now what I'm doing is I'm not worrying about the medals and the stripes on his shoulder. I'm just getting the green on there. I'm ignoring the belt. He has a brown belt that goes around his waist, and so I'm trying to be a little careful and just leave a white band so I can hit that when the time comes. But otherwise, it's just get the paint on here and let it get into the grooves and the cracks of the folds of his clothes. And when it dries, now I did take a before photo of this when he was totally primed white, and I'll include that image with this video when I'm done, along with the final image, so you can see. I can already tell you that the jacket and the pants, where it's drying in the crevices and the creases, is darker and it looks good. I'm glad I chose this green. This green is a little darker than the one in the image, just a little bit, not much, but it's dark enough that it's passable as green. Or it is green, but it's not too far from what the image is here. One of the nice things about the speed paints is you don't have to go over them a second time if you give them a good coat the first time. All right. They had this problem called reactivation, where if you went over speed paint that had dried within like a few hours or more with another speed paint or a second coat, it would sort of pull off the original coat and reveal the white prime on the bottom. They have since said that they believe they've nicked that problem. I hope so. I've not really been worried about it because I typically let my minis dry for about 24 hours before I do anything else on them. But I did experience the reactivation when I first started using them, and it was mainly when I would go over it with a second coat. I was so used to painting a coat and then going over it again that when I did it with the speed paints, I reactivated it. So I've learned to put a good, thick, heavy coat on, which goes against what a lot of painters will tell you to do. They'll tell you to go with light coats. But if you do that, it's going to take a long time because you need to let it dry. Then you put the second coat on, let it dry. So if you're just wanting to get the minis to the table, I do what I do and just slap it on there. Get it on there. You don't want it to get too much. Like when it starts pooling, you can use the brush to sort of wick it away where it's going to stain too dark maybe. and leave it where it's supposed to be, which is in the folds and the creases and stuff. So far, I'm really liking what this is looking like. Cannot complain now. What I'm doing right now is just going over the jacket just a little bit more, because sometimes I have noticed that the speed paints will they'll sort of pool, and they'll pull away and reveal lighter color in another area. So you sometimes do have to go over it with a second coat, but most of the time you don't have to. Now, the 44 colors, as I said, I don't know what they are. I do know that 3 of them are going to be what are called metallics. I think there's gold, silver, and copper or brass. And I may have the brass or the copper wrong. I can't remember what it is, but I'm really excited about that, because there are a lot of times I want a metallic, and I have to go to a standard acrylic for that. I don't own any of the Citadel contrast paints, so I basically have to go to my old standby paints, and I'm hoping that these metallics are as good as the videos show them. I gotta think they are. There's enough people that have used them and tested them that I think they got it right. The reactivation issue was something that I think I think it just happened, and they decided we're going to address it, and they have. And I think from this point forward, they've probably got a good handle on the problem and how to keep it from happening in future colors. Now, I don't know where I heard this. I don't know if this is true. I think I heard this, that they intend to have about 90 to 100 colors in this speed paint range. So if that's the case, my best guess is that this will be part 1 of a second release, a part 1, and then there'll be another release, a part 2, with more colors. I got to think that that's their plan. That would put it at about 90 to 100 colors. Now remember, the basic set that I said came with about 8. Those are in the mega set. All right. So if you take the mega set, which is 24, and let's say they want 100, that would mean 75, give or take, new paints. Well, they're not going to hit that mark with this mega set 2.0. So I got to think that if that rumor that I heard about them wanting to do about 90 to 100 is true, then that means they will have to release at least 30 to 40 more paints, if my math is correct. So I don't think we're seeing the end of the mega. I mean, not the end. I don't think this will be the last round of colors. As a matter of fact, I would tend to think that even though they say 100, or that's the rumor, I got to think that it's probably going to be more than that, because I think Army Painter has a hit on their hands. I think that the speed paints are so successful. At least the people I know who use them really rave about them. I love them. And the cost of them is they cost less than the contrast paints. That's a big thing to a lot of people. And I believe the per ounce cost, that they are definitely cheaper than the contrast paints. I don't remember what the comparison is. These are, I think, 2.2 ounces. Let's see. No, they're 0.6 fluid ounces. I can't remember what the Citadel paints quantity is, but I do know that a lot of people have praised Army Painter for keeping the cost, down on these paints, and especially with the kind of results you get. I mean, hands down, this is definitely for me. It's definitely the way to go. I mean, I've been painting now. Let me check the timer. I've been painting for 14 minutes, and I'm pretty much almost done with this guy. I've got to get his belt done and the base painted, and that is that. So for the belt, I'm going to do Sand Golem right here. And then what I will do is let the paint dry overnight, and then tomorrow I will use a fine brush and get the medals on his chest and get the sergeant stripes on his shoulder painted. I could ignore that, but I don't want to. That's just enough little detail to give him some personality and character, and make the mini stand out. I thought about ignoring that, but they're there. I can see them on his chest, and I can see the stripes on his arm right there, and it just screams to me that, you know, I need to do that. All right, and then like I said, the last thing I typically do here is I hit it with a matte black. Now this is a non-speed paint. This is the matte black army painter. The reason being is the speed paint is called Grim Black. It's never given me the deep dark black that I want, so that's why I go with this this standard acrylic matte black paint, and I use that on the bases. Now some people will add flocking to the bases and, you know, all kinds of details and stuff like that. I don't. Not for these minis. These are for a board game called Cthulhu Death May Die, and I'm not playing a lot with these miniatures. I tend to jump around from investigator to investigator, so I don't need there to be a whole lot of detail on the bases. I just paint them black so the actual mini itself jumps out at me when it's on the board. So I now have two new investigators. I have Ian, and I also did Ahmed, who I'm going to be playing these two minis in the Season 1, Episode 4 video that I'll be shooting this week. And I've been playing Rasputin and Ariel. I think that was her name. Ariel? I think it was Ariel. I've been playing those two, but I want to try some new investigators, so that's why I'm painting this one up and another one. So there you go. He is all done in about 15 minutes. Would have been much faster if I hadn't been talking to you and you know, explaining the bottles and things like that. But in 15 minutes, I've got a mini that once he dries, I can use him. Now again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch up the metals and the sergeant stripes, and then I will spray him with a clear coat of varnish. I use the Rust-Oleum clear varnish, matte varnish. I just give it a once over, and it's enough to protect the paint and keep it from chipping if it should drop or something like that. You definitely don't want to hit it with the varnish until after the paint is fully dry. Okay, so that way you don't get any drips or runs or anything like that. But as far as I can tell, this guy is done. He's a little darker than in the green, but that's okay. I don't care about that. He just looks really cool, and I'm ready to use him on the tabletop. All right, that is all I have for now. I will put a link to the 2.0 mega set. It's in pre-order right now. At the time I'm recording this video, it's in pre-order, and I believe it is scheduled for an April 2023 release, which is a couple months from now. So I can wait. You know, I'm fine with these, but I really want some more options, and I cannot wait to see them. All right, that's all I have for this very short video. I just wanted to get another mini painted up real quick so I could play tomorrow a game of Cthulhu Death May Die. If you haven't played the game, definitely check out some of my playthrough videos. I've only got 3 of them out so far, but so far I am absolutely loving this game. This is the character card that I'll be using for Ian, or Sergeant Ian, when I play. And it's a way more than I can go into right here, but definitely check out a video or two if you're into the Cthulhu style games. It's definitely a fun one to play. All right, that's all I have. This is Jim, the Tabletop Engineer. Thanks for joining me on this really fast Let's Paint a Mini video. I'll be back very soon with another one. Until then, everybody, take care.